All right, you guys, this is the final episode on the Level Up with Lacey podcast in 2025. How is it the end of the year? Okay, if I am totally and brutally honest with you guys, I'm really bad at celebrating how far I've come in life. Like, absolutely terrible. It's bad. I have this habit of constantly moving my goalpost and then judging myself based on how far away I still feel. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Instead of saying, wow, look at what I've built or how far I've come or that's amazing, Lacey. Like, I have a very hard time on, let's just say, patting myself on the back. I can toot my own horn sometimes, but sometimes it's hard for me to see my accomplishments. I quickly jump into, but what's next? When's the next launch? What are we doing on the podcast? What are we doing in the salon? Like, what am I missing? Who's doing this? Who's over there? They're doing it bigger. They're doing it better. What about that? Let's do that. Like, it's a constant judge, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. And I want to tell you guys about a moment that I had this year. And I remember this so vividly. I had this moment where I finally, I'll say, stopped myself. I was sitting in my living room on the couch and I was thinking about an upcoming launch. And this was before July. And I had set the biggest goal I had ever set for a launch. More students than ever before, more ad spend than what should have ever been allowed. And I caught myself feeling a lot of anxiety in that moment. I felt very behind. And it's wild to me because we had just came off of the best Q1 in 2025 we've ever had, like record growth. And I say all of this is wild because the version of me from just a few years ago, let's say 2 years ago, Lacey in 2022 or 2023 would have looked at my life right now and my business right now and would have been completely blown away. I realized I was measuring myself against an imaginary future version of Lacey instead of honoring the real growth that's already happened in my life. When I actually paused in that moment and I was sitting on the couch and like the kids were running around, Tommy was like cooking dinner, doing something. And it was like this just surreal moment of like, look at what's in front of me right now. So much that I had to be grateful and thankful for and how far I've come. That's what's crazy, you know? So in that moment, it was like it was just this weird, like, not deja vu moment, but it's like, I've asked myself, like, when is it enough? And I want to ask you that too. Like, when is it enough? Okay. And I just wasn't honoring any of that. And it was like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Okay. And I was looking back and I've wrote this like in a post before of all of the things that I would assume as like risks in my life, all the risks I've taken, like opening a salon at the age of 23. That's a risk. It was scary. I was terrified. Opened a salon at 23. I split from my business partner. That was at the moment the scariest thing I'd ever done in my life. Going in on my extension business, firing all my cutting and color clients that made me who I was and the hairstylist that I was. Am I making a mistake? Am I going to regret this? I'm going to lose money. Starting LG Education and an online platform, starting the Level Up with Lacey podcast, hiring a full-time executive assistant, rebuilding my entire team, not once, but twice. I survived a lot of hard seasons. A lot. And it hit me. I'm not behind at all. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And I was standing in the middle, right there, in the living room, sitting, we'll say I wasn't standing, of a life that I once hoped, dreamed, and prayed for. I had just never slowed down to ever acknowledge it. And it never hit me until then. And I'll say that shift didn't change my ambition. Lacey's ambition and drive is still there. It's still crazy and wild, but it changed my peace and my joy. And I'll say all my anxiety gone. I struggled a lot with anxiety the last couple of years, and this year I haven't at all. Like my anxiety just gone. And that's when I really understood the difference between living in the gap versus living in the game. So let me tell you guys what the gap and the gain is. Have you guys read the book, The Gap and the Gain by Dr. Benjamin Hardy? You may or may not. If you haven't, put it on your 2026 reads, please, especially if you're a salon owner, okay? It's an amazing book. I read it super quick. I listened to the Audible, okay? This is the idea, and it's simple. And once you hear it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, he's speaking to me. It's incredibly powerful, okay? And it's going to shift your perspective. The gap is when we measure ourselves against an ideal we haven't reached yet. We focus on what's missing, what still needs to be fixed, how far we still have to go, or how we compare ourselves to someone else. When you live in the gap, no milestone ever feels like it's enough because the finish line keeps moving. You keep moving that goalpost, just like I talked about. Versus the gain. What's the gain? Okay, this is on the other hand. It's when you measure progress backwards. You look at where you started. So I'm looking at Lacey at the age of 23, what you've learned, how you've grown, and what you've already accomplished. Living in the gain doesn't mean you stop wanting more. It actually has nothing to do with that. I can continue to be the same Lacey and have that same drive and ambition and huge goals. It just means you stop letting the future steal your ability to appreciate the present. I'm going to say that again. It means you stop letting the future steal your ability to appreciate the present. And when you live in the gain, confidence builds, gratitude deepens, and momentum actually become easier. And I truly believe that because you're not running on constant dissatisfaction and like, well, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I could invest in this, or I wish I had a bigger salon, or I wish I had more team members, or I wish this team member did something different. It changes your perspective. It's all about the mind shift. Okay. So I want to talk about why do high achievers and business owners struggle with the gap? Chances are you're a high earner. You're listening to this podcast right now. You're a salon owner or a high income producer stylist. And we struggle with this. High achievers and business owners in general struggle with living in the gap because your brain, my brain, is wired for growth, improvement, and forward momentum. Okay. We're constantly setting goals, raising standards, and solving problems. And that drive is what makes them so successful. It's what makes you and I so successful. It's a good thing. But it also means that our attention naturally goes to what's not done yet instead of what's already been accomplished. You guys see the difference? Am I speaking to you right now? Because I know so many salon owners and so many of you who are high achievers, and you do feel this way. And some days it's defeating. Okay. So for salon owners, especially, the work is never done, right? Your to-do list is forever growing and you constantly feel behind. There's always another chair to fill or stylist to hire, another assistant to train, another price increase to roll out, or employee growth model or commission plan, or another system you need to tighten up, another goal to hit. So the moment one goal is reached, the finish line moves. And without even realizing it, you start measuring yourself against a future version of your salon or yourself or someone else on Instagram, instead of taking a second to acknowledge how far you've already come. And I'll just say, baby, you've come so far. I know you have. All of us. It's wild. Look at who you were just 2 years ago. Okay. Another reason why the gap is so sticky is because achievement is often, I'll say, becomes tied to our self-worth. When progress is the standard, slowing down to reflect can feel unproductive or even uncomfortable. And I hate that. That's why I tell you I'm terrible at this, like really bad. My whole life I've been bad at this. Gratitude gets mistaken for complacency, and I don't want anyone to ever think I'm complacent, ever. Like, I don't want that word like in my vocabulary. But the truth is, when high achievers never pause to acknowledge the gain, it creates burnout, dissatisfaction, and a constant feeling of behind. And I think a lot of salon owners feel this way, especially right now, even when you're wildly successful. That's what's crazy. Living in the gain doesn't make you less ambitious. Like I said, it makes your ambition healthier. It allows you to build from confidence instead of a place of deficiency, and from wholeness instead of constant pressure to do more, to be more, to do more, to be more, more. When I believe that less is more. So I'm going to encourage you to think about these questions right now. I want you to just ponder. I'm going to ask you some questions. Where did you start this year in 2025? I look back and I'm like, holy shit, I was not doing CrossFit. I was not counting macros. I was not watching what I ate. Like, there are so many things that I look back at the beginning of this year, and I'm like, I feel like I've grown by leaps and bounds. And I bet you have too. What did you survive this year? What about killed you? Look back at all the things you're like, holy shit, look what happened in Q1, or look what happened in February. I survived that. And now maybe it's not that big of a deal. I can think back a lot of things in January that I'm like shocked that I survived, that I started off the year and I'm like, this year's starting off horrible. And I survived it. What did you learn this year? What did 2025 teach you? Taught me a lot. A lot. This was a learning year for me, and it probably was for you too. And then I want to ask, what feels normal now that once felt impossible? I love this one because there's so many things, like even the podcast. It's so normal and go with the flow and a part of my life. And like it once felt like a dream. I didn't know how to start a podcast. I didn't know like how to use Chat GPT, which is now Chippy, to like plan notes and outline. And I didn't know how to edit. And I didn't know, like, I knew nothing. You know, it felt impossible at one point, and now it's the normal. So think back on those questions for a minute. I want you to just reflect. Maybe you can journal. So before we wrap up this very last episode in 2025, I just want to take a minute to say thank you. Because none of this would exist without you guys, without you listening to this very second. Because of you, okay? You right now listening, the Level Up with Lacey podcast grew in ways I honestly never expected this past year, and it's wild. Can I give you guys some stats for a second so you guys can see how much the podcast has grown, which is because of you guys? We grew our audience by 163% in 2025, our total audience, okay? We saw an 1,818% increase in brand new listeners compared to 2024. Holy moly, tons of new listeners. And we're up 160% in new followers. But this number right here, this is the one that stood out the most that I want to share. You guys spent 73.8 thousand minutes listening to the Level Up with Lacey podcast this past year. 73.8 thousand minutes. That's 51 total days or a full 7 weeks. You guys spent 7 weeks listening to my voice of you choosing to spend your time right here on the podcast. That's not just a stat, you guys. That's trust. That's connection. That's you letting me be in your car, in your salon, in your earbuds, your walks, and your quiet moments. And I don't take that lightly ever. It still shocks me. Sometimes I'm like, that anyone would listen to my podcast. It blows my mind. This podcast started out as an idea. When I first launched LG Education in 2021, I was like, a podcast would be cool, but it was just one more thing to do weekly, right? And so I put it off. I put it off for 2 years with LG Education. And finally, I was like, today's the day. Like this, in April was the month that we were doing it, okay? Started as an idea, and then it was a conversation. I talked about it more and more. And now it's an entire community because of you guys. And when I talk about living in the game, this is what I mean. Not chasing what's next so fast that I forget to acknowledge what's already right in front of me and who helped me build this. And that's you guys. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being with me every single week. The highs and the lows this year, you guys were with me through a lot of incredible moments. I had a lot of good things happen this year. And I had a lot of bad things happen this year too. And you guys stood with me. So thank you. So as we head into 2026, my hope for you is that you give yourself permission to pause, to look back, and to actually feel damn proud. Not just of what you've accomplished, but of who you have become along the way. So thank you for listening. Thank you guys for sharing the podcast. Thank you for growing with me, learning with me, and trusting me inside of your leadership and assistant journey. I'm so grateful for every single one of you, and I cannot wait to see where we go together in 2026. So many fun things in store that you guys don't even know, and I'm so excited. So I love you guys very, very much. Have the best New Year's Eve. Have the best New Year's Day, and I'll see you guys in 2026. Bye, guys.